already done over an hour of leaf raking and putting them into bags. Good exercise again. We're going to do mulch, or making mulch, and now we're picking up straw for our compost pile for the cow dung. And
Farmer Helen and Farmer Kirsten.
yeah. What is it, day 8 today? Yeah, I think it's day 8.
Day 8. Well,
of our quarantine.
We'll be starting day 9, so we're almost completed if you do 24 hours.
Okay, we're feeling good. We don't show any signs.
No, so that generally means we won't get it, but you never know.
Yeah.
We've got no symptoms.
Maybe we get the mild version of it. That would be
hot.
preferable.
But I don't think that's a fever. I'm sweating.
That could be a hot flush as well.
I don't think that's a fever either. Because I think it's, just working out in the fields.
Let's keep going.
Yeah. I wouldn't use, this one here. This is from Rick. Oh, we leave it to dry.
It's okay, it's gonna go in the compost. This is not for the mound. Container. We hope this grass is okay. We don't want it to seed out in our compost pile, but you never know. We don't know the vegetation here. It could be a weed because there's plenty of it, but it could also be just...
They really don't want anywhere on this.
Yeah. It's all trial and error. At least it's nice dry material which we can use for the composting. And then we see how it all goes.
Hi ho, hi ho, hi ho, hi ho, hi ho, it's back to work again. Oh. This is shitty work. Some of this cow poop is very hard. Must have hurt.
Yeah, tomorrow we're going to pick up some fresher stuff.
Hurt when it came out.
And the other stuff we can actually soak, the super dry stuff, and put it on the next day.
That's being funny in the video.
I can't hear anything because I'm rattling with a straw here. Okay, we can put the next layer on top.
This is the stuff we're watering, right? Or not?
Just put it on here.
Oh, ouch.
Just throw it on the top here for the moment.
Okay. It's not really.
It's okay. It's small enough. I'm going to hack on it anyway.
Right. How much do you want? Keep going? Or are we watering and then?
We have actually water here.
Cover that end. Get the handle stuck and it turns in.
isn't a little rock.
Right by your left hand.
This is pretty good, isn't it?
You're losing the water.
Yeah. Are you filming?
Yeah, I'm trying to guide the camera where you are.
Okay, we'll do another layer later.
Over here a bit. This is the experimental dung pile compost. We don't really know what we're doing, but it either works or it doesn't, and this is for next year anyway, so I'm sure Julia are going to tell us whether we have Mist gebaut. That's a German joke, sorry, Mist is cow poop. Or whether we've actually done something sort of correct. So our poop pile is reducing. It means we have to go and get more. That was really sweaty work yesterday.
This was our work from today. We have already showered, but we've got 2 compost piles and we're doing a test. One we covered, it's going to be turned every 14 days, and one we left open so we can add our own compost to it, and we're going to turn it every 2 to 3 days. Both of them are layered with cow dung, hay, leaves, compost, or our own kitchen scraps, and lots of water. And it's a trial and error thing, but we're looking forward to see what the results are on that one.
This is Kirsten.
Huh?
I don't know whether you can hear what she's doing, but she is rubbing. There's her hands.
Using the sandpaper.
She's getting rid of rust, or trying to, little bits. Is that right?
Huh? Day 13 of our quarantine. Hair cutting day. Helen already cut my hair. Now the sheep is in preparation. Today is a non-windy day, so we have to use that. Did we have a 9 on you, no? Yours is still quite short. Not that long ago that I
Ow, ow. You are pulling.
maybe we should charge it. So now we're finished. This is Helen, covered in grey hair, but beautiful. 1 ear less. No, we're pretty good at cutting each other's hairs. It doesn't take that long either.
Well, you're not allowed to go to the hairdressers these days.
No. It's such a good thing that we can do absolutely everything.
Yeah.
In times of quarantine and coronavirus, you can't be my dentist though, and I don't want to be yours. Okay, yeah, that would be the...
I've got a pair of pliers.
That would be the ultimate thing.
Knee on your shower.
Yeah, you have to knock me out first, but you're good at that.
I've got a hammer.
Yeah, you're good at that. So. And this is the other shorty. I always like mine very short, but we ran out of power with our shaver.
Used it too much on this shorty.
Stan Laurel.
Laurel. Laurel and Hardy.
Laurel and Hardy. Yep, done. One task done. What are we doing now? Cappuccino time.
Exactly.
Cappuccino time sounds very good.
Whilst we're keeping busy during our self-quarantine, the rest of the world gets worse and worse.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has imposed strict new measures with immediate effect to try to suppress coronavirus. Everyone in the UK will have to stay at home, only leaving it to shop for basic needs or take exercise. Mr Johnson said the rules would be reviewed in 3 weeks. President Trump has called on Republicans and Democrats in the Senate to pass a new stimulus bill to fight the economic impact of the coronavirus. Speaking at a White House briefing, Mr Trump said both parties should avoid playing political games at a time when American lives were at risk. And more than 2,000 people have now died from the virus in Spain, most of them in the capital, Madrid. Spain is the second worst affected country in Europe after Italy, where it appears that the number of daily deaths and infections is finally starting to fall.
The Prince of Wales has tested positive for coronavirus. Clarence House say he is displaying mild symptoms, but otherwise remains in good health. Buckingham Palace say the Queen is also in good health and is following all appropriate advice with regard to her welfare. Boris Johnson will answer questions from MPs in what's expected to be the final session of Prime Minister's questions. That's before Parliament is likely to shut down this evening. India goes into a 3-week lockdown. 1.3 billion people, that's nearly a fifth of the world's population, are told to stay home. And the number of deaths in Europe passes 12,000 despite efforts to curb people's movement across the continent.
The US Senate has approved without opposition a $2 trillion rescue package to stimulate the country's sagging economy and rush federal funds to medical centres struggling to respond to the coronavirus outbreak. The US now has over 68,000 confirmed cases of the virus. Spain has now recorded more coronavirus deaths than China, the cradle of the pandemic. 738 people with the virus died in the past day, taking the total to more than 3,600. The country's deputy prime minister has also tested positive for the virus.
The US has overtaken China and Italy to become the country that has recorded the highest number of coronavirus cases. More than 82,000 people have been confirmed positive. The grim milestone came as President Trump predicted the nation would get back to work pretty quickly. As countries in Europe continue to be worst affected, leaders of the G20 have promised to do whatever it takes to minimise damage to livelihoods. They're injecting $5 trillion into the global economy. There have been more than 700 deaths in Italy in the last 24 hours. And in the UK, 115 people have died from coronavirus in just 24 hours. The British government has announced a multi-billion-pound rescue package for the self-employed.
President Trump has signed into law a $2.2 trillion emergency spending package to relieve the impact of the coronavirus on the US economy. That's the largest program of its kind in modern American history. With more than 900 people having died in Italy as a result of coronavirus in a single day, Pope Francis has spoken of the thick darkness that has enveloped the country. Britain's Prime Minister and the Health Secretary, the men in charge of Britain's fight against the coronavirus, both test positive for the disease. Also, Brazil has closed its air borders to all foreigners for 30 days as the number of coronavirus cases there rises. More than 90 people have died, and the new ban brings Brazil into line with many of its neighbours. Those are the headlines.
President Trump says he's decided against enforcing a quarantine on America's worst affected state, New York. The number of coronavirus-related deaths in the US has now surged past 2,000, doubling within just 2 days. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has warned the coronavirus crisis will get worse before it gets better. He's urged everyone in Britain to stay at home to save lives. In Europe, the number of people killed by the virus has now risen above 20,000, with both Italy and Spain reporting more than 800 deaths in one day alone. And a cruise ship stranded off the Panamanian coast when several Latin American countries refused to let it dock over COVID-19 fears will now be allowed to continue its journey through the Panama Canal.
A minute's silence is held in Madrid for victims of coronavirus as Spain's death toll jumps to 7,340, a rise of 812 in 24 hours. In the UK, a breathing aid that can help keep coronavirus patients out of intensive care has been created in less than 7 days, and if trials are successful, is expected to go into production next week. The British Prime Minister Boris Johnson announces 20,000 former NHS workers have returned to the health service to help with the crisis. Meanwhile, the British Prime Minister's chief advisor, Dominic Cummings, self-isolates after developing coronavirus symptoms. President Trump extends federal coronavirus restrictions to the end of April as a leading government expert predicts 200,000 Americans could die.
A US Navy hospital ship has docked in New York to help the city cope with coronavirus. The governor of New York State has described the scale of the crisis as staggering and warned it will spread nationwide. President Trump says social distancing can save more than 1 million American lives. 2 virus-related deaths have now been recorded in Syria. The health ministry has confirmed that a woman died from coronavirus on Sunday after being taken to hospital. Medics suspect there are many more cases, and there are fears the virus will spread rapidly through vulnerable populations, overwhelming the fragile healthcare system. And a 3-week nationwide lockdown in India has left hundreds of thousands of informal labourers without jobs or wages, triggering an exodus to home villages.
Stay tuned for more videos.